Michael, welcome to the show, man.
So great to be here with you. I'm pumped. This is awesome.
Yeah, dude, this is a quick turnaround, right? We were just together a week ago, met for the first time at the Thing in Orlando, which was the wildest event I'd ever been a part of.
Woo!
Uh,
Come on.
yeah, due to just crazy health scares. And, to those listening who saw my post about Terry on social media, he is just released from the hospital a couple hours ago today. So he spent, 10 days in the hospital. But you and I were able to connect there briefly, and then we were able to hop on a call, get to know each other a little bit last week, or yeah, it was last week, and now
Yeah.
we're here, man. And I'm excited to share you with my audience because you blew me away from the stage. I think your story is phenomenal. You played the saxophone and intertwined that into your talk, and played this awesome music video. And we'll get all into all of that stuff. But why don't we start as who is Michael today, and then we'll break down how you got there.
Thanks. Well, I mean, I think the biggest and most important parts of my life is I'm a dad to three amazing kids. I got three amazing dogs. I love got my wife Beth. We've been married for 28 years. I love like a lot of nerdy things. I'm a Superman nerd, by the way, and like we should talk Snyderverse and DC versus Marvel, all that stuff. I'm in. Um, I love Ducati motorcycles, by the way, and then you're going to find me at my branch locations all across America, which is called Starbucks. But I'm an executive coach to I'd say 40 to 50% of what we do is in the Fortune 500, and so I'm I'm super honored to be one of the most sought after team dynamic coaches within the Fortune 500 executive spaces, and we also get to serve a lot of other coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs in our one-on-one vertical. And it's been a blast. Like the last 5, 6, 7 years have been so fun.
I love it, man. And we'll get into how you got there. But I'll say this to you: I am not a DC guy. Although I enjoyed the last Superman. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was excellent. It was entertaining. It was a ton of action, all that fun stuff. I'm a Marvel guy through and through.
Marvel tells better stories. They just do. And like the diversity and the creativity in the universe. And which, by the way, for me, being a strategic guy, I like it when you have a master plan. I like it going into it feeling like you're building something bigger. And DC just hasn't had that type of mindset. Now Marvel feels like they might be in a little bit of trouble. So we'll see kind of where they're going here in the next few years.
Yeah,
That's
well,
all I'm saying.
we'll see what with Doomsday coming out, what they do. I mean, I think that'll be a reset, obviously. Not to nerd out so much on it, but Tony Stark is now Doctor Doom, and all the things in between. And it's kind of wild how they're doing this, and they're like, that's the one thing, right? I think in the last 10 years, there's been 7 Supermans, 14 Batmans. Like it's just like they just keep rebooting, right? Let's talk a little bit about storytelling. I think it's a good gateway. I think as an entrepreneur, storytelling is such a huge piece to our success. What do you do when you go into these companies, Fortune 500 companies, and you're working with the teams? How are you able to pull their story out of them to help them grow?
Well, you've heard the saying before on this, but I think whoever tells the best story always wins. And it's too easy for you to lose your true north in the middle of trying to figure out why your strategies aren't working in the first place.
Mm,
Think about that. Like, because the first thing that disappears after the first thing to disappear after you experience failure is your ability to dream. It's your ability to be innovative. It's your ability to pivot. Because even it doesn't matter the size of your team or the size of your organization. The reality is that chaos and failure will absolutely crumble everything if you don't actually stay connected to your true north. And so for me, like it doesn't matter what size of team it is or whether I'm working with a small business, like what is the thing that they do better than anyone else, and can I make sure that we build everything around it to making sure that that is the thing that shines out through. And because I think people get the idea of innovation today, but where we get confused is that we think that innovation means that you have to be inventive, and that's not true. You don't have to come up with something new. Sometimes your best success story is going to be the thing of like what are the things that have proven to you time and time again that this is still your true north. And have you pivoted away from it? Have you gotten confused? Has it gotten foggy, right?
yeah. When do you get involved with these organizations? Are they at a loss? Are they spinning out of control? Or are they already successful and they're looking to reach the next level? Like Where is it like where they go, okay, we need Michael, we need to plug him in here to explode this business that we're continuing to grow? Where do you fall into place?
Man, that has actually evolved. I think that if you were to talk to me back in like 2018, 2017, somewhere in there, I think that you're going to find is that a lot of people waited too late to bring me in. Like they waited until they were in triage mode.
Mm,
And so now what I tell people, like really simple, which by the way, it's like when people ask me what I do, I rarely tell them I'm an executive coach anymore because it's like there's so many different ways that people will react to that. The way that I introduce myself now is like I simply say this. Just like Olympic athletes hire coaches to help them break world records, I do the exact same thing for executives of companies.
yeah.
And and so thankfully that mindset really has locked in 2025 to where I would say the majority of our client base now, they're not in triage mode. They're in the space of going, "Hey, listen, we see our next win could be absolutely huge. We need to have some proven expertise along that can run alongside us to be able to help us optimize our team, make sure that we have the right pieces in the right spaces, and make sure that we're not playing it safe, that the vision's actually big enough for us to put this resource behind it." And and I tell you what, man, it's awesome to be able to be in those spaces, to be able to and it happens every day. But I probably, even just today alone, I've probably told at least 3 or 4 clients, your vision doesn't scare the crap out of me, so it's just not big enough. Let's readdress this.
Mm. Mm. And I think it's so fascinating, right? And I'm glad we're talking about this because obviously entrepreneurship is a wild ride as you grow your business. And I think a lot of people think that once you get to the top, you're good, right? Like, hey, I'm everything's lock in step. I'm reaching all the success. But I find that the greatest entrepreneurs always have coaches. And you're doing this at such a larger scale, working with these organizations. What do you think the shift was from back in 2017, 2018 to now, where people are willing to admit sooner that they might need some help?
I think that I think I just got into the right rooms, to be honest with you. I don't think that, I think those clients that were coming to me in 2017, 2018, I think that they're now somebody else's clients.
Mm,
I think
yeah.
now, like after almost a decade of, anywhere from 50 to 100x ROI on coaching revenue versus the investment, that type of thing. I think people now, the rooms that I'm in are pretty consistently to where I'm thankful we don't really talk about the price tag much in my space anymore. Like people come to me, they know that I'm proven at what I do. They know that their investment's going to be good, and they know that I'm going to always over deliver. So I think people are more excited. Like the people that I work with, they're just super jacked. Like a lot of times they're like arguing with me about when they can get started versus, hey, let me go back and talk about contracts and things like I haven't had those conversations in quite a long time.
What a rough place to be in. People
When
chasing you down. Come on, man, take my money.
Well, in the small business vertical, we do, but I think that that's where my heart is, because if you look at what is most fulfilling to me, it's like, and that's why it's like a kind of like a 40-60 split on small business and solopreneur coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs. We call it Catalyst Co. That side, I'm able to see the needle move so much faster. And so it's addictive to be in that space for me. So my other coaches that work with me, they're just like, they're always telling me like, dude, go stay out of that box, man. Like you stay over there with that other stuff that you're doing. We got this, but it's so fun to be able to see the impossible happen at that level.
Mm,
With the bigger companies, there's so much red tape and compliance a lot of times. Like when I come in and as far as like, we might come up with some really, really great strategies, but I'll come back next quarter or next month or the next coaching call. And a lot of times it's a little bit slower because there's a lot of other decision makers in the room.
yeah, I hear that. So obviously, you weren't born an executive teams coach. This is not where you started. And I'm a big believer that, again, your story is what shapes you. And I got to hear your story while we were in Orlando together. And I think it's just so fascinating because you started working in a church and you were at the peak of churchness, right? You were at the peak of the career of what people think they want if they want to be a pastor, if they want to be a leader within a Christian organization. Talk a little bit about that Christmas Eve when you made that fateful decision. I would love my audience to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you said I was at the peak of churchness. That's like, Let's go ahead. I'm going to start inserting that into the story now, man. That's so good. But yeah, I think for me, I mean, we were in the top, I'd say the top 12 fastest growing churches in the country. I was an executive pastor and resident recording artist, worship leader, singer songwriter at our church. So I was responsible for a staff of like roughly about 100 people. I had about 1,000 people in my leadership pipeline, and I had 300 over 300 creatives that were on our music teams, multiple different campuses, and I think that we just gotten to the place of disillusionment. I lost myself in the middle of it. I started making decisions that, to be honest with you, they weren't a reflection of my character. I just got lost in it. And in the middle of it, I was looking for God to give me some sort of bright light out of the heavens to say, "Hey, listen, I got you." And it came in an unexpected way. And I knew that going into Christmas Eve of that year that I was done there at that church, but I knew that there was something different for me. Now, here's the thing: that I didn't even necessarily know that executive coaching was a thing. Like, I had no idea. I went back to school to get my master's program, my master's degrees, because I knew that something was off in how I was leading the team, or at least I thought I was the problem. So I
Mm.
went back to try to fix myself, only to realize that like my eyes were opened up to other opportunities that were significantly bigger outside of the local church context. So I never want to take that part of the story for granted, because I knew that the blinker was on. I had already been starting to get invited to speak on other stages outside of church space. But in that moment, I was like, I knew that I needed to transition out. And so I literally made a bartering agreement with the Lord as I was walking up to the stage to do these Christmas Eve services, of saying, "Hey, listen, if you can show me how I'm going to pay my bills tomorrow, I will quit tomorrow." And unbeknownst to me, there was a college student there. He's a former Nebraska Cornhusker athlete who came back home. I had mentored him back when he was a football player. He came back home to show me that he had his life together and that he was making a lot of money. And he just in ironically, it was at an auto dealership.
Mm.
And in the middle of that conversation, he just, that same night that I literally said, "Hey man, God, if you care about me, show me how I'm going to pay my bills tomorrow." And PJ was this guy's name. He just randomly just said, "Hey, by the way, I'm looking for people to join my team at the auto dealership. If you know of anybody who's looking for a job." And I was like, "Dang it. Don't want to work at a car dealership, man. That's the one thing. What else you got for me, you know?" But yeah, December 26th, I went out for my first job interview that I ever had in my adult life. Originally, they told me no because they felt like I might have liked people too much. So, but I killed it, to be honest with you. Like, I did really, really good. And it was such a valuable experience for me, because that's all I had known. And that's what sometimes keeps people stuck, is that you get into situations to where you think like this is all you know how to do. So you never actually think about looking at yourself through a different lens or developing anything else, because that's all you know how to do, right?
Yeah. So, going from a godly position running these churches to what we believe is the sleaziest job of all time, selling cars, right? Oh no, it's a car salesman, like that kind of thing. Like what was that like? And then I want to ask a follow-up question to that too, about that sign that you received. But how was that shift for you? Obviously, did you hit the ground running and all of a sudden you're the top sales guy? Like how did that transition work for you?
I think that because I knew how to work with people, that there was this level of just like, I don't know, trustability that kind of came to the table. Like, my customers, they always felt like I was going above and beyond. And so my close ratio was incredibly high. Um, and so, yeah, no, I mean, it was like by month 3 or month four, I was salesman of the month.
Wow.
And, at a pretty high trafficking Toyota dealership. And then I got promoted to being a finance manager and eventually a director. And I thought it's because the thing that was messing me up was in my head, and the thing that I felt guilty about was that I had some coaching clients on the side that were enough for us to be able to pay the bills so we could maintain. But it wasn't like I was still kind of getting my chops wrapped around the idea of me being completely on my own. Like, I wasn't ready to be completely independent yet. Does that make sense?
No, totally. I feel that at the core, and you see a lot of people do that kind of thing, right? They leave a corporate job to go become, build a business, become an entrepreneur, and they'll be like still 1 foot in. Well, I still have a half a contract where they're paying me a salary, and I only work part time, and
Yeah.
you see that a lot. And I'm actually not against that when I talk to people. Like I'm I'm
Mhm.
I'm slightly against the idea of just take the leap without a parachute. Sometimes you have to have that little safety as long as you're chasing the dream. But I want to go back to that sign that you got on Christmas Eve from PJ, and I want to talk a little. It's PJ, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about that, right? Because here you were praying for, hey, show me a sign. Or if you're not somebody who is a person who prays, like you have this dream or this vision for yourself of what you want. And you almost make let's make a wish at 11:11. If I get this sign, I'll do this, right? You got the sign, but then you took the action. What do you think the difference is between people who get that sign and they go, oh, no, 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 that's not the sign I was looking for? Like you even said, I don't want to go sell cars, right? Like what's the difference between somebody who gets the sign and says, no, 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 that's not the sign versus this is it. I must grab this and run with it. What's the difference?
Man, there's so many ways for us to be able to break this down. Like we could go from the leadership perspective to the theological perspective to like the self-leadership perspective. And so I'll give you a little bit of everything, on this. But here's the leadership answer is that people will never change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change.
Mm, yeah.
Right. And that's where like my life was at in that moment. Like I was literally like, I would have done anything to be honest with you. I would have, now I wasn't like, super excited about the idea of selling cars, mostly just because even my last few years of being a pastor, I had seen like the trust reference of a pastor. Like when I'm in the community, I just wouldn't tell people that I'd like be at Starbucks and they introduce myself, etc. I wasn't telling people I was a pastor because I was afraid of how they were going to react.
Mm,
And now I'm
yeah.
going into a job that is going to have the exact same type of effect when I tell them that I'm a car salesman. I'm like, well, that's a lateral move. That's not. But here's what I loved about it is that I loved that I felt like I was doing something that actually helped make the planet spin a little bit.
Hmm.
It was a real job in the real marketplace. It wasn't me just being on a stage, working within a church and not necessarily knowing like, okay, like I know that there might be something beyond, inside the hood there or maybe something in your heart that you're getting closer to God or whatever. But now it was different. I could actually see I was meeting a functional need in somebody's life. And I really liked that a lot. And so there was differences on that. But then also too, like on the spiritual side of it too, is that I believe like I just believe in the sovereignty of God. And I think that that's where I think a lot of times when the reason why we don't take action is because we feel like that there's some sort of like, we feel like maybe that there's a better option. Like that sometimes God comes to us with this like menu system and saying, well, if you behave really well, this is what you're going to get. If you're not behaving really well, I'm going to punish you. No, man, it's like I really believe like that that the creator of the universe actually cares about you and he's not giving you leftovers. He's giving you the things that are the best things for you. So I actually believe that these decisions, they were already made. I was just literally stepping in obedience into the next thing. And I was like, well, if this is what it is, this is what it is. So I was cool with it, but I was I was nervous, man. I was disappointed. And so kind of stepping into that was just more of like an act of obedience of just saying, okay, this is what it is for this season.
Yeah. And then how did you transition into the executive teams coaching? Like it's obviously that's a leap. It seems like a leap. Right now you run this massive company, you're the founder, CEO, all these things. How did you make that shift into that full time?
I had a vision back, so going all the way back to 2012 when I started to kind of navigate this. And I'd already started like the thing that I was great at, like within the church context. And the reason why I had become pretty well known, like I was already speaking at conferences, I was working with a lot of other churches, is because people fundamentally actually don't know how to run teams. They don't know how to build teams. They don't know how, and churches is like one of the hardest spaces for you to build teams because of the volunteer dynamic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like these organizations, some of them are massive and they're huge. How do you get volunteers to be able to give of their time, their talent, and also their money to be involved in something and to be on a team without them feeling like they're being manipulated or indoctrinated to be there? And that was the thing, man. That was my sweet spot. That was my superpower within that space. But then even being on the team, I think like the thing that I recognized as we were moving at light speed is that there's one thing that everybody has in common if they've ever been a part of a bad team is that they never want to do it again.
Yeah.
Like everybody has it. And so I started to really focus my studies and even my differentiator within the, because there's a coach for everything. You know what I mean? It's like you like the whole idea that there's riches in the niches. I kid you not, man. The day that I went public, as far as saying, "Hey, the name of my company is Teams.coach. It's built after a methodology. So here's that's our website, Teams.coach, but it's also our methodology, and it breaks down. We focus on targets, engagements, action steps, momentum, and synergy, and those are the proven form factors of every single great performing team on the planet. So let's go." And then as soon as like I started to communicate through that lens, all of a sudden it's like our SEO was locked in on the website. We started to get invited into conversations. And it wasn't long before I'm coaching some of the biggest organizations on the planet.
Yeah. And you felt comfortable because you already ran a huge organization. It just looked a little bit different.
Absolutely. And that's where I say this, you and I chatted about this a little bit just in our conversation last week, but running a church organization and running church teams, I think the reason why sometimes church leaders make really great team members or leaders outside of the church is because it is so complicated. You have to do almost everything when you're on. You have to be available for everything. You have to learn a lot of different skill sets. And when you're running a church that's 5,000 people and your leadership pipeline is complicated and you're trying to empower people to do things that they've never done before, you're going to grow your skill set super fast. And I'm just going to tell you, like, to get started, like one of the things, like even just a free nugget for outside of this one of our things that we started off with back in 2017 was just the idea of this is that you have to run your company like a media company in 2025 or else you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're in like the auto detailing business. It doesn't matter whether you're so like Aveda Beauty Salons was one of our first huge, massive Fortune 500 companies we worked with because again, it came down to that idea of storytelling, right? If you're not running your company like a media company, you're going to fail. And so I am a student of that model. Like we started off my first hire after I got my first Fortune 500 contract is I went out and I hired a creative director. Um, Not the one that I have now, but my first one came on and he was like, "All right, great. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this with films. We're going to do this with storytelling." And we made sure that we were putting out media that made it look like we had been doing this for decades. And I was just like, I front loaded that whole thing of like saying, "Hey, listen, if I'm going to be visible, it's not going to look like crap. It's going to look like, and it's going to sound like the best content that's ever been done." And it paid off.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and I think too, because especially because how we all consume content now, right? Like we're constantly consuming this video content, no matter where we look, we can't get away from it. Whether it's on your TV, on your phone, computer, whatever, you're constantly, absorbing this content. And the ones that stick out are the quality ones, right? The ones that are look good, but also are hooking you, telling a story, doing all these things. So to have the right people in place is super key. So I'm glad you touched on that. One thing I wanted to touch on is your keynote talk at the thing. I think it's funny because you go to these events and you have a lineup of speakers, and every speaker is going up there and go, say yes to your dream, say yes to yourself, say yes to this. And you went up there and you were like, say nope. And I want you to touch on that a little bit and the importance of nope. Because when I think you handed out these cards and I was one of the first people to get it and said nope on it. And like, I just smiled and like shook my head because I took back my power when I started to say nope instead of saying yes to everything. So I was like, yes. And I didn't know where you were going with it. And I obviously loved it because that's why we're here having this conversation now. But talk a little bit about the power of nope.
Well, I mean, one of the frameworks that I work with leaders has really been built out of a personal experience. And I mean, because when you think about it, and the framework is just simply this: it's called the now, next, and nope framework. And that, like, through every single idea, every single conversation that we have, every single responsibility that we have, every single opportunity that comes our way, organically, they're just going to go into one of those three bucks. It's whether we actually think about it or not. But do you realize like how powerful you can be if you just simply pause for a moment and actually think about it before you allow them to pre-assign themselves, right?
Hmm.
67% of all innovative ideas fail because of failure to execute.
Wow.
Okay, 67%. Okay, well, does that mean that like those 67% were horrible ideas? No, what it means is that somewhere along the way, that leader and the majority of leaders, they over um, they they over support their now bucket. They put everything into that bucket. And so what ends up happening is that the things that it causes us to burn out, we're overcommitted. It's a dopamine rush. I was just literally on a coaching call with a European furniture distributor out of New York City. And he was just literally telling me on how, as he was going through this and taking things out of his now bucket and actually starting to move them over to his next bucket, that he literally felt a physical effect change in him. He said he could start to breathe better.
Wow.
And his mind was clearer because he started to recognize that the now bucket requires the highest level of emotional and psychological and sometimes spiritual energy, because those are the things that are like, hey man, if I'm not giving my attention to it right now, it means that like this is either the best idea on the planet, it's a guaranteed 150 to 200% or more ROI on this type of investment. And so if I'm going to put something in the now bucket, it better give me a return, right? Well, people come knocking on doors just to, I hate even logging into LinkedIn right now because I feel like it's violating my now bucket, man. You know what I mean?
LinkedIn. Yeah.
It's like, I almost have like I don't even have a love hate relationship with LinkedIn anymore. It's like I feel I'm just doing it out of obligation, but I think you
I
get
just have a hate relationship with LinkedIn, so we get
dude, man, we
not
can
a
do that
fan.
all day long. I'm there with you as well because that's like it feels like it's a place that we have to be. But man, my inbox on LinkedIn absolutely has no value in my life. Like I don't even respond.
Yep.
But man, it's like taking people through this idea, and then where people, the biggest opportunity is in the most powerful opportunity is it comes in the nope bucket. And that in this nope bucket is just the idea of like, what are the things that you're currently giving your energy and your attention to that really have no place in your universe, man? And sometimes it's your ego, sometimes it's your personal relationships, sometimes it's your business partnerships, maybe sometimes it's your strategic plan. I don't know everything on this, but I promise you this is that like once you actually start to identify the things that are not worthy of you, it will absolutely unlock you and take you to a totally different space.
Yeah. But dude, this what you were just talking about is so good, right? And I think this speaks to the overwhelm of humans in general, not even business owners, just humans in general. We feel like we have to solve everything right now, and to be able to go, okay, well now next, and then nope, right? Like, hey, this isn't for me. This can either be completely let go, or I can pass it off to somebody else, or whatever. What is it about leaders that they feel like everything needs to be now?
Um, Ironically, I mean, there's a little bit of a mad science to some of this, right? Um, I think it's the things that we feel, the pressure to show up and deliver. There's the responsibility. Ironically, there's this paradigm between what we feel as our responsibility versus the level of authority that we bring to the table as leaders, right? Can you see my hands okay on here?
Yep.
And so what ends up happening is that when our level of responsibility is significantly higher than the level of authority that we actually have, what ends up happening is that we end up making all of our decisions based off of traumatic energy.
Mm,
So anxious response. And it causes kind of like this volcano. And that's what we feel as leaders that kind of pushes everything into that now bucket, right?
yeah.
Ironically, like people that are in our fields, like on the Enneagram, I can actually tell you, like over 72% of people that are leading organizations organically fall within seven, eights, or ones on the Enneagram, which have that almost a little bit more of that, like that gut response, a little bit like, hey, let's put things in the now. So with that group of people, I have to say, Gary Vaynerchuk is in that bucket, by the way. Like Donald Trump, he's in that group. Steve Jobs was in that group, and these people will tell you that there is a little bit of like you want to have that sense of urgency. You want to be able to have that thing that pushes you further faster. Because Gary Vaynerchuk would say, like, hey man, your first 36 ideas you're going to fail at, but one of those 36 ideas you're actually going to get something to work. So the difference
Yeah.
between you and I are literally how fast can we get through our 36 mistakes to be able to find the next big idea, the next thing that works, the next thing that gives us traction. So there is some value in priority and speed, but not everybody's built for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I actually Elon Musk is a great example. However you feel about him, he's a
Yeah,
great
same
example
thing.
of it. He is that guy, and I read his biography and learned a lot of the whys behind it, how his brain works and all those things. And he's like, let's finish this 3 days ago. What? We haven't even started yet, right? Like his mind is like it needs to be done super quick, super lean. And that's just the way he operates, right? And then he operates all 24/7. I mean, he'll probably die young of a heart attack or something, but it's just unbelievable. And so I think being able to kind of assess life a little bit, and I love the fact you're like that. Your client who said I'm breathing better already, just doing this, like that's what it's all about. Yes, we want to build great things. Yes, we want to make an impact. Yes, we want to make good money. Yes, we want to do all these things, but in sacrifice of what? You know what I mean? And I think that like having this mindset of being able to, what do I need to focus on now? What can be next? All those things, it alleviates so much pressure for so many people. So I'm so glad you've built this framework for people to follow. I think it's huge. Now, another thing that I love that you did, you played a music video on the stage at the event. You're a music guy, right? Like you've always played instruments. You played the saxophone on the stage. You've mentioned you play the piano as well. I'm sure there's probably other instruments too. But like, what brought you back into music? Because you said you abandoned it for a while.
I did. When it was, I was a Christian. I grew up in the music industry with being a son of my father, but I was also involved in the Christian music industry. Like you can still go to Spotify and see my radio singles and all this stuff. And I was the face of a music program in a church. And my exit from the church was so traumatic on so many different levels. It was personal, it was professional, and I just believed all the wrong things. And so I don't really blame anybody else on it except for me. But the idea of sitting down behind a piano and starting to write again, boy, man, that was painful. That
Mm,
was so much anxiety. And I just felt like it was almost like a universal punishment to say, hey, listen, like you don't get to do that anymore. Like, and I had to work with, I started going to therapy, worked through it. I've, hired two or three executive coaches over the last 5, 6 years to help me just kind of reframe my mindset on it. And it wasn't until like I started dabbling with it again, like around 2021, 22, coming out of COVID, but it didn't feel right because the only thing, I mean, I have a couple hundred published songs like in the Christian music space. And
wow.
so I didn't necessarily know how to write songs for anything else except for Jesus. Like I just, and I'm like, and so I hopped back into some writing projects and then I kind of just did an about face on him saying, and it had nothing to do with my faith. It just was like, I just knew that was not my scene anymore. It wasn't for me. It's not what I was interested in doing. So I hung it back up. And then my creative director came to me earlier this year and was just like, dude, man, we don't know of any other coaches that are also a recording artist and also like a legitimate coach. So what can we do with this? Like, there's got to be something that we can do. And I was like, creativity has been a big play for me. It always has been, but this year specifically, like even if you go to any of my website, or if you go to our social media pages, it's about creativity, clarity, strategy. And and it's just like, it was just felt so good to be able to lean with something and make it something tangible, like in the keynote space, and then pull it into our filmmaking space to what are we doing to be able to actually lead with creativity.
Yeah. Dude, I love it. And obviously, as you're going forward and building your personal brand in order to, get on more stages, to grow your business, to make the impact that you're willing to make, that's a huge piece, right? Like that's such a unique factor, like you said, to be able to kind of intertwine that in. And now you're writing inspirational songs for entrepreneurs, which I think is incredible. The song was incredible, and a lot of times I've seen some people try it, and it's real cheesy. And your stuff is just really, really good. I'm excited for the next drop. And you said, didn't the first video hit 100,000 views or something?
Just crossed 100,000 right now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, how can people get that? How can they see the video? How can they find out how to hire you for the stage? What's all, I usually wait till the end of this, but let's do this now. Like, what? How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so go to michaelkingjr.com. So that's my personal brand website. You'll see all the companies that I own is there as well. But you'll see our featured video right there. It'll take you to YouTube. But then you can also go to Spotify. So if you look through at the single "Through the Haze" on Spotify or Apple Music by Michael King, you'll see that pop up too.
I love it, man. So, I want to ask you a question I ask every single person on the show. It's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Whew, man, you should have emailed me ahead of time so I could at least chat GPT this. Um, for me and what success looks like, not to oversimplify it, but leaving things better than I find them. That includes my relationships, includes my team, includes the rooms that I get to serve, and includes when I'm speaking, and also includes the clients that I get to serve on a day-to-day basis. And like how I make sure that those things matter. The only things that people will ever remember you by is how you make them feel. There's something so tangible about a feeling, right? And like I've worked with other coaches in the past and I've walked away with a feeling of like going, man, I didn't really get what I felt like I was paying for out of that. And um like have you been there before, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like right? And so that feeling of like, okay, great. So for me, like I measure the things that matters. I always overserve, always. Like I over deliver regardless of whether it even makes sense or not. Because I think there's a motivation behind coaching that sometimes you can get off. And let me explain this to you real quick, because this is so important philosophically as far as like who I am as a coach, is that I think sometimes, especially in a world where we have 4.2 million coaches across the planet, people that call themselves coaches, I'm not interested in you being a part of my story. I'm only interested in being a part of your story. And I look at myself almost like, I would say like if going back to like you'd have to almost be in a time capsule to understand this, but back in the 1970s, A&R reps for record labels, it's their job was to go out and find the next Michael Jackson, or their job was to go out and find the next Elton John,
Hmm.
and to be able to see greatness in people and to say, listen, I see something amazing in you that literally is going to change the way the earth spins. So I want to be a part of your story. Let's make something happen, right? Things are totally different today because people don't really get record deals without being an influencer first now.
Yeah.
But thinking about that from that perspective, that's what I feel like is when I'm working with people, man. It's like I've had discovery calls with people that I've told no because I'm like, this is not a great fit because I don't necessarily know how I can be a part of your story yet, but we're close. But the people that I do serve, like I'm telling you, like if I see greatness, if I see an opportunity for me to be a part of the story, dude, we're all in. But I don't bring clients on just because I want them to be a part of my roster or be a part of my mastermind necessarily, or just to be able to get a check box on the monthly, revenue roster, right?
Yeah.
Like this has everything to do with me serving the rooms better than I found them and making sure that I'm able to take somebody to the next level and me being a part of their story.
I love it, man. I love it. And I love the idea that you don't say yes to everybody. Like that's huge for me too. Like I've told more people no to joining a mastermind than yes, because it's about wanting to be a part of their journey, like you're saying, and obviously saving the energy of the mastermind, right? Making sure they're good people that are navigating together in order to move forward. So I'm glad we're on the same page when it comes to that. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, what's the socials? We know the website's michaelkingjr.com, but any other information that you want to drop here? Now is the time.
Yeah, Michael King Jr. 75 on Facebook. Same thing. Michael King Jr. On LinkedIn. And so, yeah, connect with me, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, get in there, and let's go.
I love it. So, like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question since the show is called The Growth Now Movement. That question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Ironically, my biggest moment of growth was when I said, when I, on that day that we talked about, when I said no, when I said, okay, enough's enough. And I have to be able to take a huge sacrifice, not knowing exactly what the next day was looking like, but I had to trust my inner voice. And and I did something that I never thought I would ever do, but I literally said no to the only thing that I felt like was keeping me alive so I could find out the thing that would make me thrive.
I love it, man. Michael, thank you so much for being you, sharing your wisdom with the world, and coming on my show and sharing your wisdom with my audience, dude. This has been phenomenal. Excited to hang out with you in April at the summit. Guys, he's going to be in the room. We might have some surprises up our sleeve. I don't know, but excited for all of it, man. Thank you so much.
Oh man, what an honor. Thanks, man.